What if I told you that in the Viking world, sleeping alone could actually kill you? Not in battle, not on the open sea, but quietly, in your own bed. Imagine the coldest winter night you've ever felt. Strip away everything modern life gives you. No heating system, no insulated walls, no electricity, no glass windows, no thick synthetic clothing between you and the cold. Outside, the wind howls across the Scandinavian wilderness. Snow gathers against the wooden walls. The temperature sinks far below freezing, and darkness stretches across the land for nearly 20 hours a day. Inside a simple wooden house, an entire family lies down to sleep. Yet morning comes, and they wake up alive. For centuries, Viking families survived winters that could freeze an unprepared person within minutes. Not because they were superhuman. They survived because every detail of their lives worked together. Their homes, their clothing, their beds, their food, even the way they slept served one purpose: to keep the cold from winning. The Vikings engineered their entire way of life around it. The first secret of that survival begins not with fire, but with the shape of their house. From the outside, a Viking longhouse did not look impressive. Just a long wooden structure resting low against the landscape. A thick roof stretching down toward the earth. A thin trail of smoke rising slowly into the gray northern sky. To a modern eye, it might appear simple, even primitive. But that simplicity was an illusion. The Viking longhouse was a carefully engineered shelter, designed to survive one of the harshest climates on Earth. Every beam, every wall, every layer of the roof served a purpose. The shape of the building itself was the first line of defense. Longhouses were built low and slightly curved,
allowing brutal Arctic winds to glide over the structure instead of crashing directly against flat walls.
This subtle design reduced the force of icy drafts that could otherwise strip heat from the interior. The roof was even more remarkable. Viking roofs were covered with thick layers of turf and living grass, heavy slabs of earth and living grass carefully packed together. What they created was something extraordinary, a natural blanket. The soil held countless tiny pockets of trapped air inside its roots and fibers. Air is one of the best insulators in nature. This dense turf layer slowed the escape of heat from the house below. Then winter added its own protection. As snow gathered on top of the roof, it formed an additional insulating layer. The house slowly became buried beneath earth and snow, transforming into something that looked less like a building and more like a small hill rising from the frozen ground. And strangely, that made it warmer. The colder and snowier the storm outside became, the better the insulation worked. Inside, the longhouse behaved almost like a giant thermos. Heat from the hearth and bodies remained trapped within thick walls and roof, lingering far longer than it should have in an ordinary wooden structure. But even the smartest architecture had its limits. Heavy slabs of earth and living grass carefully packed together. What they created was something extraordinary, a natural blanket. And that is where Viking ingenuity turned to something even more subtle than flames. Many people picture Vikings gathered around huge, roaring fires, flames lighting the room through the long winter night. So the Vikings relied on a quieter, smarter system. At the center of the longhouse stretched a long stone hearth,
built directly into the floor. During the day, the fire burned steadily.
Meals simmered above the flames. Wet clothes dried near the heat. Tools were repaired while the hearth warmed the entire room. But the most important moment came just before night. As the household prepared for sleep, the flames were slowly reduced. The large stones surrounding the hearth had spent the entire day absorbing heat. The glowing coals were carefully covered with ash, allowing them to smolder slowly instead of flaring back into fire. What remained was not a blaze, but a deep bed of quiet heat. For hours, the heated stones released warmth into the room, gently radiating energy stored throughout the day. Even after the visible flames disappeared, the longhouse stayed warm in the darkness.
Fire is not only about flames, it is about stored heat. And once the house itself had absorbed that warmth,
another layer of protection began to take over, one that did not come from the hearth at all. It came from wool. To modern people, wool is just another fabric. But to the Vikings, wool was far more than clothing. It was survival technology.
each coat contained 2 different layers. Long, strong outer hairs that resisted wind and weather,
and beneath them a dense, soft underlayer that trapped heat close to the body. When these fibers were spun together,
they created a fabric unlike anything else in the ancient world. Heavy, dense, almost completely windproof. This cloth was called vadmal. It was so valuable that it functioned almost like currency.
People paid taxes with it, traded it for goods, and sometimes even settled debts using bolts of carefully woven wool. But its greatest value was not economic, it was warmth. Unlike many modern fabrics, Viking wool still contained its natural oils. These oils helped repel moisture and block cold winds. Even when the material became damp from snow or breath,
it continued trapping heat around the body. And the Vikings treated this resource with extreme care.
Nothing was wasted. Old garments were unraveled and spun again into new thread. Worn wool was packed into bedding to create insulation. Even the smallest scraps were pushed into cracks in the walls to block icy drafts. Every fiber mattered. Because in a Viking winter, warmth was measured in threads. And when night finally came, those threads turned an ordinary wooden bench into something much more advanced than a simple bed.